Hi, it's Maria, and I'm doing number 25 of our Forgiveness to Love videos in Maria Unfiltered. And so the title of this one is It's Page 8 of my forgiveness list, where we talk about identity theft and banking and IRAs and even the Social Security Administration and tampered wine. Oh my gosh. And so I just want to interject here that you may see, well, you are seeing me wear the same outfit. It's like it's become my uniform, I think. But there's a reason for it, and that was because I have so many videos that I have on my website, mariahaiti.com. And so I wanted to keep these separate, and I am putting these on the website too. But I wanted to have the Forgiveness to Love videos separate. And so rather than have you go through all the different videos, I thought if I just wore the same thing, then you'd be able to find those videos quicker. However, I didn't imagine that I'd be doing 25, and I'll probably do a few more as well. And so anyway, I'm wearing the black top and the turquoise. And so yeah, that's why. I mean, I really do have some other clothes. But on 24, I mentioned that, we're on a wild ride, and we really are here in this physical world where human beings are learning the hard way how to love, and primarily how to love themselves. Because otherwise, if they really love themselves, they wouldn't be engaging in this kind of gross behavior, right? Gross and criminal behavior, actually, because they love themselves. And if they would love themselves, then they would be able to love us and treat us with kindness and compassion and love, rather than to destroy us or try to destroy us, right? That seems to have been the MO for so many dark souls on the planet, or so many unhealed souls. We'll be kind, and we'll call them unhealed, wounded souls, fractured souls, perhaps. And so here we see here where my life is highlighted, and you're able to draw correlations to your own life based on some of the struggles that I've had, because we all have similar struggles, and it's just a matter of how we view those struggles and what we do with them. How do we overcome them? And so here, I think I'm pointing out that the dark is far-reaching, and that some people truly have no morals. They have no conscience, no ethics, and sadly, no respect for even human life. And for most of us, that's just, just too hard to even imagine. And remember the cliches: money is power, and money is my God. And so those are actually tenets by which some people actually live. And we think, oh my God, how much someone loves us is really a reflection of how much they love themselves, right? Because they can only love us to the extent that they love themselves. And so in this video, I'm going to talk to you about identity theft first. And that was that opposing attorneys put out my private information on documents they filed and on the internet. Both they filed it in the courthouse and on the internet. And many of you have been in that situation too, where your privacy has really been violated. And I learned as a result that my identity was stolen. And so, well, actually, I can't say as a result, because I don't know that that really is the reason or the vehicle by which my identity was stolen. All I do know is they both happened, right? And so my credit was a mess. And so my credit was actually used for someone to obtain a mortgage and an auto loan as well. And so when I realized this, I tried to get a copy of my credit report, and yet I wasn't even allowed to do that because I couldn't verify my identity, because they asked me what was my mortgage payment and what was my auto loan payment, and I couldn't answer either one. And then they said, okay, so what state are you a waitress in? And I said, I'm not a waitress, and I have no idea what state the person who stole my credit information is living in. So I didn't know. And then, credit right now seems to be a big topic for so many of us because, the financial situation of many has become very tenuous. And I realized that my credit was even further compromised by an ambulance bill. And even though I had medical insurance when I was living in Arizona, and the ambulance bill was due to the accident that I sustained, the injury I sustained when I was traveling from Arizona through California to Oregon. I was going to Ashland, Oregon. And and so even though I was traveling through those 3 states and I had medical insurance in Arizona, I didn't have it in California because I was just traveling through there. And then I was going to get it in Oregon once I got there. But none of those 3 states would claim it. So that was a black mark on my credit report. And then, of course, you've all heard about the Honda Odyssey, that I put out some videos that my Honda was possessed. Anyway, with that one, there was simply no explanation other than fobs really being passed out to various people. And I heard that my sibling was involved in that one. But that was where all of a sudden I'd be driving and the wipers would swish back and forth, or the horn would start honking, or I'd be driving in traffic and all of a sudden the hatchback or the trunk would fly open, and just really weird things. And then the sabotage, where where all of a sudden I'd get out of the car and I'd be walking to a store, and I would hear this water or this liquid, and I'd turn around and I would see this liquid just gushing out from under the bottom of my car. And I didn't know what kind of fluid it was. But so there was the gushing of fluids, and then there was the overheating and the smoking and the potential for explosion, all of which, I assume were to torture me or to endanger my life. But every dealership, no dealership actually could deal with it, because they said that, there was nothing wrong. And so I had no choice but to turn in the car. Yet I had that car for over a year. And so that really screwed up my credit as well, because after I no longer had possession of the car, I stopped paying for it. And so it took a while for that all to be resolved. And so, I wanted to interject something about that, because my dad had, well, this is kind of, we're going to go into now the IRAs, and then I'll kind of bring it back together. But my dad had shown me 2 IRA statements, and one was one that they were withdrawing from for living expenses, and the other one had over 10 times the amount of funds in it. And so my dad designated me sole beneficiary of that one. And my dad had said, we were all trying to protect his estate, our estate, then from the ex, who really wanted to get his little paws in it. And so my dad had said, well, no matter what, no matter how hard he tries, he can't take an IRA, and he can't take the trust. And so, well, he did take part of the trust. We saw that. But anyway, he said that the IRA was protected. And actually, as it happened, after my parents died, the sibling never distributed that IRA to me. And it appeared that she, wasn't going to distribute all of that. And even though she and I were co-executors, my dad realized that once the ex was suing him, he took me off as a co-executor. And he thought that was best that I distance myself from the rest of all the money, so that in case, the ex had, was successful in doing whatever the dirty deeds he did, that at least he wouldn't be able to kind of slither his way in through me, using me. And so so the sibling became the sole executor. And both of us, though, were still 50-50 beneficiaries. And so, lo and behold, my dad was worried that the ex would slither in through me. Well, he didn't slither in through me. He slithered in, not only slithered in through the sibling, but she actually opened the door and let him just walk right in and grab anything he wanted. And so that was kind of weird, while the sibling and son were illegally signing my name and stealing all kinds of things. And so, sometimes we can try to protect ourselves as best we can, and unless things go in our favor, and unless we have justice, because there is so much injustice in the world right now, and so unless we, although we do know that in the end there is karmic justice, and so we just have to know that to be patient and to do the best we can do, and to not stoop to anyone else's level, and to just hold firm in our knowing that we hold the truth, right? And so it was interesting because in 2018 I was living in Arizona, and I was invited by a friend to a luncheon. It was a brokerage firm luncheon. And I thought that was kind of humorous because given my financial destitution that I was experiencing, while others at this luncheon were interested in looking into various financial instruments to be used as investments, all my accounts had been emptied, so I couldn't invest a quarter. And so anyway, I mentioned this account. There was, one of the IRAs. And I mentioned this to my friend who had invited me, and he said, "Oh my gosh, the account is there. However, it's not in your name." And so I'm sure you can guess whose. But I was told I needed to hire a Florida attorney who could subpoena them for more information. But I thought, how was I going to get a Florida attorney when it wasn't even possible for me to get any attorney in the entire state of Florida to help me get what was rightfully mine in the inheritance? And so as I think about that, and I thought, hey, you know what? I live in America, and the United States is the greatest superpower on earth, or at least that's what my belief has always been. And so per the Article 7 of the Human Rights Act, I'm equal to equal protection under the law. And so I thought, that became obvious that I needed to, that I wasn't going to somehow prevail in any litigation if I wasn't granted representation by someone, somewhere, somehow. And I had no idea why or how that was happening. I just couldn't even put my arms around why I had been placed in that position or what was going on. And so even though I had initiated litigation against Greyhound for the bus accident, the bus injury, where the bus door, this huge steel metal door, was closed and slammed my face and my head, and then threw me where I slammed my head against the side of the bus and sustained a very serious traumatic brain injury, I realized that I needed to abandon that litigation, because it somehow, it was almost as if God was showing me that I wasn't going to prevail, because I hadn't prevailed in anything thus far, when I absolutely believe that I was in the right. And so anyway, we got a little bit off track here, but we were talking about my dad's IRA that was bequeathed to me, and that the broker that had now taken over my dad's account was handpicked by the ex. And when the ex and I married and moved to New York so he could work on Wall Street, the ex had given my father's account to someone that he was friendly with. And so the ex knew exactly what he was doing when he did that, because the broker was obviously beholden to him, because it was a great account that the ex just handed him. And so in that way, the ex was able to keep his hands, in the treasure chest, or what do they call it, in the till. And the ex had, so many tricks up his sleeve. It was kind of like a David Copperfield kind of a thing, he was just very tricky. And so anyway, that's about the IRA. And so when we have an IRA, even when we are the sole beneficiary, things can still, if if there's a lot of dark energy, which there was in my case, and the sibling didn't distribute any of the assets really to the benefit of the proper beneficiary, things can go awry. And so, I didn't understand just how far-reaching this could be. And so, because we don't think that way, right? And there didn't seem to be anything or anyone that couldn't take advantage of me. And I thought, hey, you know what? I'm an intelligent woman. I know what's right, and I try to do my best. And so all of a sudden, things were just, my life went haywire. And I think for many of us, that's happened. Even when we try to do our very, very best, and we want to help, and we want to give, and we care so much, and we love, and we trust. And so the more we do that, sometimes we think, wow, we are so unappreciated. But it's not really about anyone else appreciating us. It really is about our knowing that we are on the right track. And so for many of us, I think that's kind of the lesson. I know that I would sit back and I'd say, this life is just, I am spinning out of control in this lifetime. And I realized that it was one lesson after another. And so if I talk to you about the banking, that was another whole drama, I have to tell you. And so as for the financial and bank accounts, that was really crazy. And so, wow, it was hot in here. Excuse me. And so at times, there were wrong routing numbers. There were wrong account numbers. There were errors in deposits and in balances. And I remember seeing credit card payments that I had called telephone bankers in order to pay one credit card from a checking account. They would write in the wrong numbers. And so the payments would be late, and I'd have false late fees, and there would be lost bill payments, and there would be accounts with fake middle names. And so I don't have a middle name. And so my name is just Maria Haiti. But there were I don't know if it was Maria T. Haiti or something like that. And so there were all kinds of weird things going. And so I couldn't figure out why it had never happened really during my marriage, or certainly thereafter, once everything just started going really crazy. And in terms of bank boxes, how many of you have bank boxes? Well, I always thought they were very secure. And so I realized that the security had leaks the size of craters. I mean, if you can really imagine that. And that they could be entered because of lost signature cards, and despite my signing them. So when you go to open a bank box, they ask you to sign your name on a signature card so that in the future, when you come, you sign, and then they check that signature with the signature that they have on file. Well, the signature cards would suddenly disappear or mysteriously disappear. And so what I was told is that the sibling had the cards disappear so that she could claim she was me and sign my name. And the signature didn't have to match my signature because it wasn't on file. But in fact, it matched her signature because she had the signature card, because she had made the signature card, which is just so bizarre. Anyway, it was just crazy. And actually, during the divorce, the ex had done the same thing. He was able to get into my bank box. And so I'm sharing this with you because, honestly, I would have never imagined that bank boxes were not secure. And I would have never imagined that someone could have gone into my bank boxes. And so anyway, that's something that you should keep in mind because it is very real. I mean, I am living proof of that one. And so as I talk of safety deposit boxes, to me, that reminds me of an inheritance, right? Where sometimes our parents keep keep assets hidden in safe deposit boxes. And so I I'm reminded that sometimes children would rather have money rather than parents, right? And so the sooner they could get rid of their parents, the sooner they could access the money. And this is really, really a very dark issue that I'm talking about. But it does happen. And so that's why I think it's important that we understand that. And so and it happens more and more because more and more people are being diagnosed with Alzheimer's or dementia. And so when I think about how many times we say, oh, I can't remember, or oh, where did I put that? I can't seem to find it. Well, sometimes children or spouses or whoever is the caregiver or whatever may say, oh, you know what, you are really forgetting a lot of things. And so maybe we need to have an Alzheimer's assessment on you, or we should see someone, and maybe, it's not safe for you to live alone anymore. And so maybe we should think about a facility for you. And so I know that I believe that happened to my mother, actually. And that's why I'm bringing it up. And I believe that my mother was one of the first signs that were made available to all of us was that she was driving back from the hairdresser, and she was so flustered that she pulled over, and the police stopped her, and the police said, well, where do you live? And she was so flustered that she couldn't remember where she lived. And that was kind of the beginning of the end for her. And I think I mentioned this in 24. I'm not really sure. But, there you go. I forgot. And so anyway, and I wonder if, in fact, my mother, if in fact the Creepos maybe had done to her car what they had done to my Odyssey, where the windshield wipers would go on and off, or something weird would go on with the electronics. Well, I'll tell you, my mother was such a little saint that if that happened, she wouldn't even know how to deal with that, because she would think, oh my gosh, so all they'd have to do is do that a few times, and that would push her over the edge, because she was already, remember I had mentioned that she was already feeling very, very vulnerable in her condo, because while she was asleep, the big wooden doors would open and then close. And so I don't know if people were in the condo and then they were leaving, or if they opened it and closed it just to kind of spook her. But it doesn't take much, for us to be concerned about what's really going on. And then it's kind of the perfect entree for a son or daughter, to initiate the commitment process, right? And so it gets things get way out of control once that happens, because you really then you're fighting a losing battle, because you're viewed to be someone who is cognitively compromised, right? And so anyway, let's see, what can I tell you? Oh, I did actually, one day I was driving, I went to borrow her car, and she had this Mercedes, and so I got in the driver's seat, and I went to put my foot on the brake and the accelerator, and I realized there was this big wad of sticky, gooey stuff put on the accelerator, and I had trouble getting my foot off the accelerator. And then I was able to do that, and then I saw that it was this wad, and so I quickly got that off. But I thought, oh my gosh, what if my mother were doing that, and she was trying to drive someplace, and she was experiencing that, and I just thought, an older woman, that really could push her over the edge for sure. And so and then along with that, the commitment issues, people, they're the dark people in our lives could buy life insurance policies on us. Have you ever imagined that one? Well, I sure hadn't, because we're supposed to sign for those, right? We're supposed to know about them. But in fact, I realized that, and I had been told that, in fact, there were more than a few life insurance policies taken out on me. And I didn't even know it. And then there were even like forged documents where we were married. And I thought, I barely know these people. And so this is what I was told. And I thought, oh my gosh, like this is just like too weird, right? And so, so anyway, keep in mind that you have to have your wits about you. And I'm sure that the insurance agencies do their due diligence and make sure that they don't just pay out a bunch of money to someone who claims to be the beneficiary of a life insurance policy. But what that means is that we'd have to no longer be alive, right, for them to even try to process that claim. But anyway, so I'll tell you about the Social Security Administration. And some of us are entitled to survivor benefits when our spouse or former spouse passes away, right? And so I was in a 21-year marriage. It was actually 16 years when I left, but it was 21 years when the final documents were signed. And so I was certainly entitled to those survivor benefits. And when I first went into the Social Security office, and I was told, oh, well, we don't have that information here in our files, but all you have to do is just get a copy of the death certificate, and or have one of your kids call with the date of the death, and then you'll be getting those benefits. So I thought, that's really easy, right? I'll just get a copy of the death certificate. And they gave me a letter that said I had a financial interest in it, so I could get a copy of that. And, they said, call the clerk. So I called the Cook County clerk because he had been living in Chicago. And so I called the Cook County clerk. I called the Illinois Department of Public Health. He also had a home in Florida. So I called the Broward County clerk and the Florida Department of Public Health too. And I checked everywhere else I could think of. And I made phone calls, and they said, without that certificate, you can't get anything. And so I thought, and I kept calling saying, well, what do I do? And so they said, well, you can hire a private investigator. So I hired two, and one after another. When the first one didn't pan out, I hired a second one. And then that guy never called me back either. And so I thought, well, this is crazy. So I called again, the Cook County clerk, and they yelled at me. And they said, until you produce a certificate, no benefits. No certificate equals no benefits. And so I thought, well, this is the craziest thing I had ever heard of. And so I thought, well, who else can I call? So, and I don't know if any of you have had difficulty dealing with Social Security, because, they should have all the information, right? And so I even called governors, and I called senators and mayors and congressmen and attorneys, and not one could help me. And they said, well, sometimes they say, oh, we have computer programs, and we can find anyone. But they never called me back, or they told me, no, we can't get involved in that. You can just call Social Security. And here we are, like 5 years later, and nothing. And I'm thinking, that is just so weird. And so, and then after I came to Florida, and I came here in order to see the documents and how, my inheritance had been stolen. And I came here and I met some people, and like out of nowhere, they would say something to me that only they could have heard from the sibling, because otherwise they should have not known any of this. And so some would say that Actually, the ex hadn't died. Well, I heard he died in 2015 or 16, years ago. But actually, I didn't even know that for the longest time. I had just heard that he had passed in 2000. I think I heard it in 2017 when I went to get those benefits, because I had been told that I needed to go and collect them. And so, or they'd say, they said he either wasn't dead, or they'd say that his second wife was getting them. And I thought, well, that's pretty weird, because that means that she must have gotten the certificate, right? I mean, so apparently the certificate was available for some, but not for me, right? And so anyway, this whole thing was a repeat of, no, you can't have any attorney helping you even get your home back. And I thought, you know, it was one thing for me to go through it, but then as I thought about it, because everything that I've gone through, I try to see it in how others are being affected by it. And I thought, my gosh, in this day and age when so many people are struggling financially, and some people just can't seem to survive without those benefits. And I mean, truly, I could barely survive without the benefits. And so I thought, how are people living if they can't even get those survivor benefits? And so I thought, there has to be another way, because is this how we treat American citizens to benefits that they certainly are entitled to? I mean, they worked years and years and years, decades, in fact, and paid into Social Security. And now if they can't find a death certificate, or they can't find some other piece of paper that they need in order to claim those benefits, they're denied that. And so I'm struggling with how do we help one another? What can we do? Who can help advocate for people that are entitled to certain things, and things just slip through the cracks? And so that's really, my position here, is my sharing all of this is because if it happened to me, it's happened to a lot of other people. My case might be more extreme, for sure, yet we share similar struggles, because there are only so many things that we struggle with, whether it's financial or relationship or health. And so we do need to make sure that we get the help that we need for every one of us living in the United States, living on the globe. But right now, we need to take care of our American citizens right here and right now. And so when I talk about stalking, that's the other biggie for me. And I think it's been so pervasive and so completely terrifying and exhausting, because for me, it wasn't just one stalker. And so many of us have just had one stalker and we don't even know it. And yet, so it wasn't just one stalker at a distance where we don't realize that's what's going on, or a voyeur, or just a crazy snoop. Yeah, but with me, it was like an entire convoy. And that's why I say that my situation is more extreme than yours. And yet it's not necessarily all that different, because I think I mentioned in number 24, I even, when we call the police and we tell them that we're being stalked, there's only so much they can do. And I know that when I was being stalked by the 9 huge trucks that were like in this convoy, and I was terrified, and I was in California, and I called the police there, and an officer said to me, and I said I wanted to report this crazy and terrifying, dangerous stalking that was going on, that I was experiencing at that very moment. And the officer asked me how my sister would describe me. And I thought, what? I didn't have a clue what he was talking about, really. And then he said, well, would your sister say that you were delusional? And I thought, oh, here we go again. So because she's stalking me on my phone and she knows that she's hired these stalkers. And and I was telling people that, oh my gosh, I have all these stalkers and I'm going to call the police. So apparently she called the police and told them, oh, you may get a call. And she's totally delusional. But anyway, I just thought, wow, sometimes when we are in desperate need of help, people that are actually the perpetrators can make calls to block us from getting the help we need. And many times it's a life-threatening situation. And so, for instance, I notice big trucks sometimes driving past my room. And when I notice their faces in a grocery store or in a store acting just a bit too friendly with the employees, or the stock boys, including the stock boys, or the cooks or servers at restaurants, I shake my head and I wonder. So human beings are so dark and so unconscious and so wounded that they've sold their soul to the darkness. And those are the people that are to be pitied, truly, because they really think that they're getting away with it. They really think that by harming another one, that they're getting some type of benefit from it, when in fact it's just so absolutely so self-destructive. But this is something I really want to stress again, because law enforcement has told me this, and I need to mention it to everyone. And that is that many times we are told that a friend or a relative has passed from a heart attack, and what I've been told is that so many in so many instances, it's actually the result of a chemical placed in our food or water. And sometimes and I know that my family has been trying to get rid of me for a long time, but I know that when I have chest pain, or if I have pain down my hands or my neck or my back or my leg muscles seize, or I feel dizzy, or actually what happens too is I all of a sudden will just break out in like a sweat. I'll just get really, really overheated. And it's almost as if the chemical that I've ingested from whatever I've eaten that has been tampered, that it feels as if there's a chemical reaction, and it's almost as if I'm burning up from the inside out. Do you know what I mean? And so, and because I all of a sudden was diagnosed with 5 cysts on various abdominal organs, and I thought that could be from this thermodynamic situation here, where my organs are being destroyed by the poison that I'm ingesting. And so I'm wondering, sometimes things are hidden in our food. They're poured over our food. They're sprayed on, pesticides and things like that. Or I had actually heard of, and I was told this, that they're even injected in fruits or vegetables or meat. And so, and this was disclosed to me by people that know. And so, and these are non-detectable poisons. So I am not here to frighten anyone. I just want you aware of it, that, take care of yourself, lock your doors, watch what you eat. And it can happen in your home, it can happen somewhere else, and it can even happen in a restaurant, and it can happen in the food you buy. And so I'll tell you, I was invited to a wine and cheese in Carlsbad, and when I was staying at a hotel. And I thought it was kind of weird that they invited me to go to the adjacent hotel. But I had been in my room writing, and really hadn't been getting out much. But it was right before I was planning on coming to Florida for this inheritance issue. And so anyway, I was served a small bottle of white wine. And so I drank it. And that night, I felt like I was going to die. And it was so horrifying, because um, because it was like they're just, I mean, a bottle of a little white wine bottle. And so I thought this was so weird. And it was like my entire body just ached and my leg muscles seized. And that's what can happen to your heart muscle by this neurotoxin, right? And it affects our nerves and it affects our muscle because the heart is a muscle, right? And so whether you have a cramp in your leg, in your calf muscle, or whether you have it in your heart, it's basically the same it's the same mechanism, right? And so and I had days before I had actually noticed on my Google Maps because it was about midnight and all of a sudden my phone showed up on Google Maps and it lit up. So I looked at it and I could see a car driving from, it was actually, I checked it, and from 9 to 12, someone from my hotel where I was staying drove to an engineering firm a few blocks away, like about a mile away. And at midnight, they drove to someplace else, and they were there till 3 in the morning. And I actually stayed up to see when that car would then drive back to the hotel because he was obviously a creepo stalking me, and he came back to the hotel. And so I was up and saw when he came in, and I was thinking, okay, so how and maybe it was all a setup, for to invite me to this wine and cheese and then hand me this particular bottle. And I thought, so at an engineering firm, what did they do? They repackaged it after they contaminated it, after they tampered it, or I just didn't know how that worked. But, pay attention because you could think it was just bad wine, right? Which was what I wanted to think. Or it was a stomach flu, or just, you want to just rise above suspicion, right? Because you don't want to think that anything that ugly and that gross is happening to you. That's certainly, I don't want that stuff in my world, right? And so, anyway, and I realized that, our thoughts are so powerful, and the things we say are very powerful too. And in fact, I was talking to someone because we were talking about the pandemic, and so said something like, "Oh, it felt like I had been hit with a Mack truck." And after I said that, I thought, cancel, because oh my gosh, that's what the dark does. Is all of a sudden, people end up getting hit by a Mack truck, or in fact, if we say. What was the other thing I was going? There was something else. I can't really remember right now. But if we say something, then all of a sudden, the dark likes to kind of let us know that they were listening and that that's going to happen. Or they try to strategize that. Oh, I know. It was on the news, they had like this random shooter. I think it was in Texas, and he was shooting at random. And I know that when we talk about that, and that's on the news, that's how they want to make it look like it's an accident. And we don't want to go there. We don't want to think that, oh my gosh, somebody's after us. But if in fact we feel like we have been targeted, or if in fact we feel like we're not as safe as we would like to be, then then it's time for us to take extra precautions, right? And to stand tall, because there are many perverted and twisted souls out there, and they just like to play mind games, and they do just really, they're into the black magic, and they do all the voodoo and all that crazy stuff that I had no idea was going on in my life, that people in my family would actually do that kind of horrible stuff. Or if you all of a sudden, if you're like drinking water and it's like you're drinking cotton, all of a sudden your mouth gets really yucky. And so anyway, pay attention to that and stop drinking that water. Go out and buy bottled water or get that water tested. I know all of a sudden now there's all this controversy about, I was just on the internet and it was saying about all the lawsuits filed in connection with Camp Lejeune, where the water was contaminated, and now they're seeing so many cases of cancer from the drinking water. And so anyway, I'm going to end this on that note, and we're going to go more into some other disclosures that we all can benefit from by being aware, right? Because that's the whole point of it, is once you move closer to standing up for yourself, then you become a better version of yourself, and a more healed version of yourself, right? And then all this negativity then is dispersed because we've raised our vibration above all this. And we don't need to learn the lessons anymore because we don't allow that stuff in our space. And yet when we are vulnerable, that's kind of when people say, oh, I can take advantage of her, right? And so we have to keep going and keep glowing and stand tall and stand strong. Yes. And so anyway, come with me to number 26, okay? And I'm so proud of you taking your power, because that's what life on planet Earth is all about. It's about this wonderful experience that we can have here. But you know what? We have to overcome challenges, right? We overcome them, and we overcome them, and we see it for what it is. And then we have a different perspective of this whole journey here. And we see all the things that we've been through. And we think, oh my gosh, it has made us so strong. It has made us so more awakened. And we are not going to go back into that unconscious state where we can feel like victims. I mean, we're not victims. We are in control of our lives. I don't know what's going on with my hair. It just feels so weird. But anyway, okay. So I just want you to know that I really, really love you. And I thank you for being here with me. And I'll see you at 26. Okay? Okay. Bye.